Good evening, everybody. I'm Martin from Puls8 Radio. I'd like to welcome Dr. David Butler, and I'm with my colleague and co-presenter Phil, and we're going to talk to David about his association with Delia Derbyshire. David is a senior lecturer in drama and screen studies at Manchester University, but I think he's got a few tales to tell about how he became to know Delia Derbyshire, who, as people probably would know, wrote probably one of the most famous electronic pieces of music in the world, the Doctor Who theme. Anyway, so David, let's talk about how you came about to know of Delia. Let's have a chat about that.
Let's get in there. Yeah, well, yeah. Hello, Martin, and hello, Phil, and hello, all viewers and listeners. Well, I mean, my route to discovering Delia Derbyshire was, as a child growing up in the late 1970s, as a lot of people of that generation, was through Doctor Who. Her version of the theme tune, her arrangement of Ron Grainer's original composition, was still being used until 1980.
Was it 1980 that stopped using it?
That's when they stopped it. Yeah. Then they got Peter Howell's version came in, which I love as well. I mean, that's the one, not just for the nostalgic purposes, but I think a lot of the later ones start to get a little bit cluttered. I'm very fond of the current one that Sega Nakanola is doing, because he's gone back to use some of the component parts of Delia's, and then he's done things to them in the same spirit of her.
Did she not do a reworked Doctor Who theme on the VCS3, I think it was? She didn't really like synthesizers, which is ironic, but everybody thinks the theme was actually done on a synthesizer, but it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I think that's one of the things that often surprises a lot of people, to realize that was pre the synthesizer days at the Radiophonic Workshop. And then they get sort of the early ones, like you said, they get the VCS3 in, the Delaware, courtesy of Peter Zinoviev, who died very recently.
Sadly passed away, yeah.
That's right. And Delia had worked with Peter. They were part of a setup called Unit Delta Plus. So she had access to that kind of fledgling technology he was developing. She did a number of variations of her original, sort of adding sort of spangles, and then anybody who knows Doctor Who from the 1970s will know that at the end of every episode there's this fabulous electronic scream that goes into the closing credits. So she adds that in.
Right, that was added. Okay, I hadn't realised that.
Yeah, that's not there right in the very first version. So she sort of upgraded that, but for its 10th anniversary, she was asked to do a completely different take on it using the synthesizer that Radiophonic Workshop had by then, and by all accounts, her heart wasn't in it. You can hear this version; it is out there. This is the story. They didn't use it on a broadcast of Doctor Who in the UK, but by accident, it was left on some copies of those John Pertwee stories, which went to Australia. So our Australian friends got to hear. There's a handful of episodes with this version, the Delaware version of the Doctor Who theme tune, and then that subsequently that's been released on DVDs and things like that. But it never went out in the UK. Probably, I think Delia wasn't that disappointed about that. But I mean, when I was hearing the Doctor Who theme tune, I didn't know that was Delia Derbyshire.
No, obviously not. No, none of us did.
No, I mean, she still wasn't credited.
No, not at all.
On Doctor Who. She doesn't get a credit on the Doctor Who closing credits until, I don't know if either you know when it is.
The 50th anniversary, I'm pretty sure of it.
That's right.
I was watching out for it, and there it was, and I felt very emotional.
Yeah, me too. Seriously, I agree. I thought it was a really beautiful gesture that they did it. So I didn't know who was doing that. The first name that I ever associated with the Radiophonic Workshop was Dick Mills, because you'd see his name in the closing credits, and then there would be that special sound, Dick Mills Radiophonic Workshop, and it's such an evocative label. What is this place? What's what goes on there? And there's all that everybody says things like were they wearing white lab coats and twiddling all kinds of extraordinary levers and things and stuff like that.
Yeah, I spoke to Dick Mills a few years ago, and he was a lovely guy.
Fantastic. Yeah.
You do sort of imagine these people in their white coats doing all sorts of strange things to oscilloscopes.
Oh yeah. And actually, if you've ever got to see the Reform Radiophonic Workshop perform live in the last 10 years, a lot of their gigs, Dick will come on stage in a white lab coat,
yes,
to play up to that. But yeah, I mean, so my route to it was, like a lot of kids of that generation, and not just children, we didn't have a video recorder. So me and my sister, our favourite shows on telly, we would put the tape recorder up close to the TV and record those shows, and then listen back to them at night when we were in bed. Sort of like, this is like pre-audio books, being a thing. And it's quite something actually that when you've got a TV program you've recorded on a cassette, can it still tell a vivid story if it's just the audio? And the things that did that were things with Radiophonic Workshop soundscapes, because the sound was doing so much of the storytelling. So Blake 7, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the Box of Delights were, real favourites of ours. Oh, the animated version of Ulysses, the science fiction version of Ulysses, which was like mid-1980s on BBC, children's BBC at that time, but it had a really lovely electronica soundtrack. So that was where I was really starting to listen again and again and again and become obsessed, like really just becoming intimately familiar with those soundtracks. But the first time where I could absolutely put Delia's name to a piece of music and make that connection was there was a cassette. There were two cassettes actually, Doctor Who at the Radiophonic Workshop, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and I got both of them. And also there was a cassette called Science Fiction Sound Effects with a picture of the Liberator from Blake 7.
Oh, right. The Liberator.
Yeah. And it was just, and I remember buying that from the BBC shop in Eldon Square in Newcastle, because if you wanted to have a good day's shopping, coming from West Cumbria, you either went to Carlisle or you went to Newcastle to do your shop. I remember going there, I'd be like, like 14, 15 or something like that, and getting that cassette and the Doctor Who one. And on that Doctor Who cassette was Blue Veils and Golden Sands. And that piece just absolutely, I was just spellbound. I know we're going to play it later on. Yeah. But that was the one for me where, and she's obviously, she's credited, and you make that connection. You go, I want to find out more about this person, because that's just extraordinary.
Yeah, it's an amazing piece of music, and she made it from a metal lampshade. The main frequencies, the sounds, is just beautiful. The way she's actually using tape manipulation to delay sounds on it, it's just beautiful.
It is, and actually in the archive there are so many extraordinary things in there. But one of the revelatory recordings is there's a makeup tape for that piece where you can hear her gradually transforming particular sounds. And one of those sounds, you're absolutely right about the metal lampshade, Martin. The Cooley Comet's one of her favourite sounds. But the other thing that's quite prominent in there is her own voice. And if you hear in the background
yes, of course, I forgot about that.
There's this sort of like counter melody, which is da na 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 da na 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 da na da dun dun dun. That's Delia's voice. It doesn't sound like her voice, but she recorded her voice, then repitched it, playing it back at different speeds. Lots of heavy filtering on it, gradually turning into this sort of counter melody of, as she said, the camel's hooves going off into the Saharan shimmer. So
was that piece actually composed for a TV series? So I can't remember now.
Yeah, it was. Again, a lot of people Doctor Who fans will know that it turns up in the John Pertwee story Inferno, which is John Pertwee's first year, and it was used there essentially as a piece of stock music. But and another one of hers, like the Delia Mode, which is again one of her more famous pieces. Both those were on the Pink Radiophonic Workshop album, which has been re-released. So if people want to track down a lot of her music, then the Pink Radiophonic Workshop album, you'll get some of her most beautiful pieces on there. But its first appearance was in a documentary for the BBC about the Tuareg people in the Sahara, who was like nomads and just making this kind of like slow journey across the desert on camels. And Blue Veils and Golden Sands doesn't appear like that in that actual documentary. It's sort of a fresh mix that was done for the album, but there's different sort of like variations of it in that documentary piece, and it just captures that. You can hear the heat haze in there, the shimmer on the horizon.
It is a great piece for that sort of setting, isn't it?
Yeah. I got to see that documentary at the British Film Institute a few years ago. I went into their archives to watch it there. And it'd be lovely actually for that to be released, because the piece is beautiful, but I think when you see how it fits with the film, you get again that just that respect for how sensitive she is at responding to the images and fitting them like a glove.